Hey there, Internet. It's me again, Salgood Sam. The AC is off. Of course, it would have been nice to have it off for the last video, but it is what it is. It was very hot and steamy earlier today. Now, not so much. I'm going to do that work I was talking about. This is pencils for page 13 of A Bastard's Tale. I guess, yeah, let's... just for very brief context. So I'll flip through these earlier. I'm just going to really quickly jump to, this is the content of Mind Engine, which this next entry of A Bastard's Tale is going to go in. These are roughly in order of how I'm going to publish. Oh, there we go. So this is, I think it's like the third. Let me turn that music down just a wee bit, smidge. Right around there is probably good. I'm just using the meters. And I'm gonna remove the headphones myself. Well, no, actually I do want to hear if it's playing, so. Okay. Yeah. The third or fourth story I've done in this series now. And I was just going to end this on page 12. Just there. But I changed my mind. I want to do more. There's another moment that happens right after this that I wanted to add. And I've done thumbnails for a few others. 5 pages in all. So it's going to be 5 pages longer. So that's what I'm working on now. So right after this we pull away and you can see my father's grave. My mother, that's my mother walking. Well, it's a very rough cartoon version of a memory of her. I think I've got to work it a bit. We'll do that now. Here we go. Also always wrestling on the story with like how do I want to keep it more sketchy, because I do want to keep some parts of it very sketchy and loose. At one point I was thinking about that being like a symbolic way of indicating how what's the word I'm looking for, so like an idea I presented in the very first A Bastard's Tale was that the veracity of memory is highly dubious. Just turning down the music in my ear. Not a reliable thing. Every time we remember a thing, we rewrite the memory, and then when you're young, it can seem like your memory is a lot more rich and precise. Simply because there's less to keep track of sometimes. I think this grass definitely is something I want to keep sketchy and pencil drawing like feeling. So I have all of this knocked down at 50% opacity. but I might just keep these pencil lines for the grass as the grass lines. Interesting experiment with this story, by the way, as an aside, is the experimenting with different degrees of finish. A couple of the pages I've done recently have been really tight, and I've been liking what I did, so I didn't steer away from that. One of the open constraints is to allow for stylistic drift and try to just instinctively represent the moments as I feel them. And to get back to what I was saying before, I can't ever claim any of this to be as I truly remember it, because memory is so unreliable, and it's an unreliable narrator to work with. So my mother asked me, she saw a bit of the last time I posted this, live streamed some of this stuff. She might be watching now. Little after her bedtime, but maybe. She said, is that a memory as I remember it, or is it? I think she said wrote fantasy or something like that. I wouldn't call it fantasy, but it's unavoidably a conflation, because my actual memory of being this kid leaning over Pepe, because he sort of very dramatically fell and cried and just expressed grief in a way that I didn't get as a kid culturally. So I grew up partially with Pepe. He was Ecuadorian, and from what I recall, I think he came to Toronto as a merchant marine. I'm not 100% sure about that anymore. Oh, I'm drifting on my layers here. They're getting mixed together. It happens. At this rough stage, I'm less concerned. Were I doing... Whoops, I don't want to brush. Were I doing tighter work at the finishing stage, I try to keep my layers very orderly. I need to get this core out of my way. There we go. But at this stage, there are good reasons to do so, just to be able to bounce back and forth quickly. And I think I'm going to clean this up. So I'm going to select everything that's not Arna by selecting her first, and then invert selection. And this is something I like about Clip Studio. Nope, this one. So I can do that and do that. And is that just grass? It's grass and Pepe. That's sort of appropriate because I want them to blend together. So yeah, he collapsed as we were walking away from Lionel's grave site. We just gone through the whole ritual, and I'd thrown some dirt in the grave along with some plastic teeth that I got at the local corner store as a kid that summer, with money my father gave me to grab something while we were there. I would go there all the time on my own, so it wasn't that special, but it was just a moment that I had fond memory of in my very recent past, because his death was the fall of a summer that I'd spent half of with him and remembered well. At the time, this is the thing, it was a very strong memory when I was young. Now, I could not differentiate the last summer I spent with him from any other, even season I'd spent with him, really, outside of contextual things that I remember, like whether there was snow on the ground. It's no longer so clear. So if anything, what I remember from many of these events, because they're so far back, is the narrative that either I repeated a lot myself, but more frequently, because I'm so young, back when this was all happening, a lot of it is stuff other people repeated to me. Their telling of the story, especially because I was a pretty young, impressionable kid. I'm like, 8 years old in this drawing, going on 9 in a month or two. And people very easily, when you're a fairly impressionable kid, impressionable, there we go. Which I think at that age I was. I think all kids are, but I know I was. I can speak for that. To that with some authority. I think it's easy for others to impose their reality on you. It's kind of almost designed in. It's part of a culturalization. That was a nice cue. A heavy piano line. Boom. Satisfying. So I was quite taken aback by Pepe collapsing, making such a animated public display of his grief. I was being much more stoic. I kind of felt like that was how you were supposed to be, keep it together. Wasn't such a macho thing, but there were elements of that. But I think like the dominant theme was more something of a way of being and expressing or not expressing emotions that was normalized by the side of the family I spent the most time with. My father's family were actually quite extroverted, still are, by comparison to my mother's side of the family as a whole. I learned to code switch between those two realities and others, enough so that like people who I've known from one subset of community, when I was more social, particularly when I was in my 20s and 30s, would not completely recognize me or really know who I was, but think they did in another, or from another, yeah. Definitely being a chameleon is something that my father was big into and left me as an idea in my head before he died. Okay. I was enjoying getting into the waves of grass, but I'm going to back up for a second and remember I'm doing something else. Oh, what's Arna now? Just check what I got. Oh, I left one of her feet behind with this grass layer. Let's move those to where they belong. A little bit of organizational refocusing. Pop. That metal sound in this comic, I have a line about listening to the sound of streetcars blocks away going around the Neville Loop in East End, Toronto, and the beaches. I had a bedroom there as a child, and through the walls of the basement, in my basement room on Blantyre, I could hear the sound of the wheels of the streetcar squealing against the rails as they rounded the Neville Park corner. And that was like 2 blocks up a hill, and that hand is huge. blocks by Helen, what would have been about 4 blocks, 5 blocks east of where it was actually happening. The thingy there. Chuck it in. Nice. Much better. I'm going to work on that. That arm is actually a little extra long, but I like the wavy gesture of it, though. It does feel like a movement in her walk sometimes. So Arna asked me, backing up to where I lost a thread, there's the grass. Okay. Let's work on the grave. Is the memory? No. And so it is a memory, but it's the memory that I have that I know is an amalgam of stories. There is no first person. I wrote Arna at one point about, hey, you know, I realized I don't have any photos of Pepe. I know there are many out there, but somehow I managed to come away from my youth with very little of that. I can imagine as to some of the reasons is why, but in any case, especially now that I'm more aware, like, I always had aphantasia, and it probably informs my relationship to memory, and my interest in this memoir project in some ways is partially informed by exploring the unreliability of memory, because I'm especially sensitized to the question by the fact that the entirety of what I have as memory is limited to a single non-sensory channel. I guess is a good way of talking about it. Too fat. Like twice as long fat as I want. There we go for now. I have, in air quotes, vivid. Although there's some people in the chat. Vivid, but not visual. Narrative memory. Senpai, that's a teacher, isn't it? Memory of the past or anything. Like, anything I want to remember. It's not visual, it's not sensory, no sound or taste or touch. I have when I think about spaces and things like directions, like how to get from place to place, I have this something that's sort of like a non-sensory record of spatial and tactile sensations. That's a pretty weird way to frame something, probably, but it's the best breakdown. It's like I can remember what direction I'm facing relative to other directions and spaces and my surroundings, and where the wall is and where the street is, and even things blocks away as I turn and move. So I think it's an extension of proprioception that I have a good playback memory of, though it would be misleading to say that I feel it or sense it in any way. It's more like I can read the record. No, that doesn't work. What I want to do is select just this chunk and edit that. These are live recordings that you're hearing right now in the Montreal metro system. There's a local busker playing in the background. And I think some people clapping along. I have a number of field recordings. I haven't done in a while, but I have a handheld mic and rig, and just go out, walk around, record my surroundings. And then the train arrives. You have no clue about what? Let's go to this one. No, good, perfect. What do I have on that layer? There's some of my cat purring. Okay. So what am I doing then? Well, Marie, I am working on a page for A Bastard's Tale, my memoir. If you're interested, at the beginning of this clip when it goes into the library, you might be able to scrub backwards to the beginning now, I think. That's how it works on YouTube. You'll see the first chunk of the first 12 pages of this particular installment of my memoir, if you want to. But right now I'm working on page 13, and these are events that have it's my life as I remember it. Although, as I was rambling about, you cannot really rely on your memories, and that is a theme, a primary theme in the overall narrative that I'm building with A Bastard's Tale. A Bastard Tale is the title of my memoir. And it's spelled A, capital A, bastards, plural with an S, no apostrophe, tale. A lot of people say, because it's a reference to both my father and myself, and it's the plural rather than the possessive. A lot of people, when they see the title, they want to say, did you forget to put in the apostrophe S? That would be the plural, and it is the possessive, that is, I should say. I'm not sure now because I'm so focused on actually drawing what I actually said the first time. I could have gotten it wrong there. If so, I apologize for the confusion. So I want the dirt. They've been scooping from right around here. People are digging up. Show. There's a message. There you go. Someone just wrote a bastard's tale. So right now I'm just defining the mound. This is the pile of dirt next to the grave. I was thrown, I was saying earlier, by the way Lionel collapsed. And in some versions the story was like wailing. I'm not sure if that's true, because I don't personally remember, but people kept telling this account. And I've had some other people express uncertainty because they don't remember it. And that may be true too, because it's not my account, it's other people's account, but it became integrated into my own memory as a child. And I think the piece of self-narrative that it contributed to my larger identity was a relationship that I had around what I've now come to know is one of my kind of neurodivergent traits. I have this really intense issue with proper nouns and numbers and names. I also have dyslexia, but this is separate somewhat. It's a form of transient anomia, I think is the best title for it. Anomia is something usually people get from strokes. I don't believe I had a stroke. Could have had, like, got knocked around as a kid some. Bullies and just accidents. A couple of concussions in there at least. So who knows? But I think mostly I was just born this way. And I always have issues with holding on to I think this is true with everyone. So something that I've read a lot is that we're not good at remembering things unless they have some sort of strong emotional component and or something that we make an intentional exercise of trying to record, like using mnemonics or something like that. Like really overtly try to bake into our brain a little. There's going to be a crowd of people here, so I don't want to do all this grass. I'm looking for a patch that has an interesting shape that pulls the eye. That works, I think. Let's go back to grave. Do the rest of the sides of the grave in here. You'll notice I'm going through lines. I'm going to use white later on, and some of this might actually just be the rough first draft pencils, although this story, again, I might keep some sketchy. I think that video, that sound, is something I put in the playlist to tell me I'm about half an hour. It's a bit of looping of backwards and overlapping samples I did a while back. I overlaid them like fugues. That was fun to do. I've been very busy with the drawing. I haven't done a lot of audio work recently, but I always enjoy its play. What year was I born? That's getting personal. You can look it up if you wanted to. 1970, September the 15th. And they didn't have much understanding or appreciation of neurodivergency when I was a kid. So there were issues around that. There can still be, but it was way more pronounced. I know that they have, in some places anyway, improved quite a bit since I was young. I'm thinking about this mound of dirt. I don't need to do a lot of detail. I might sketch in textures. But I think I'll leave that simple. Let's do the digging figure. Who's it going to be? I want to use someone from the crowd I drew in the last page. So I'm just blowing that up on another screen here. Would have been cool to do Laurel. I remember watching her, though. I think I was still standing watching when she put her dirt in the grave. Let's just use some fantasy person. How about the guy next to the one reading? Do I have more queued up for after this? This goes on for a while, as you noticed. But, is it the last thing in the playlist? This goes on for... curious, how much you guys hearing? Curious, how much you guys hearing? Curious, how much you guys hearing? Well, that looped interestingly. I don't think you guys are hearing very much, are you, at all? Let's bring that up for a little. Here's the trippiness in the background. There it shows. Anyway, what was I saying? Is it the last thing? It's not even on my playlist here. Oh. No, it is. It's the last thing. There we go. Well, so be it. There may be no music soon. Let's just fade it out now. I'm going to keep drawing and babbling, but I'm going to play music for myself because I don't have further content that I can air that I haven't already vetted. But that means I can listen to other things and not just my own stuff. That's a good thing. I need a bigger screen. Let's look at this. I see you guys have been active in the chat. $66. Oh no, I ain't no kid. I turned 51 in a month. Not even a month now. Is it a? What is it? Anyway, September. Um, yeah, I got good pretty young, but that had, I think, more to do with the lack of interest in anything else than anything else. I don't really believe in the myth of talent. And I also feel like I was motivated by the perception that I had to make a living at something I knew I could do, like art. Like I would play with it. I wasn't serious about it, but my mother was an artist professionally, so I was around. And that gave me access to many other artists who she knew and worked with. So I saw many techniques, and I was able to walk around an animation studio as a kid and learn a lot from just all of that different kinds of skill and technique on display. There we go. There's my playlist. And let's switch to that. Yeah. So by the time I was, what was that, be 15-ish? Something like that? And we were having to pick high schools, and at least for us, we had to like, what are you going to do? And I was into doing science and technology or something, but I was told I didn't have the marks. Don't even try. And I thought they were assholes for about that, but I also didn't feel like I could fight that institutional gatekeeping, so. And I didn't know how to go about trying to get into doing those things without institutional support, like going to university and shit. So I kind of said fuck that and got dropped out grade 11. Started working part-time in restaurants while I was working on my art. I had a little advantage in doing this. Chunk of money I was able to put. It was meant to go for colleges and or something. Not a lot by today's standard. Wouldn't pay about maybe about a year's worth of school now, but back then would have gotten you a whole education. And instead of using it for that, I put it in a GIC, which is a kind of account that can be for savings, but you can also set it up to spit the interest each month out into another account. And I did that. Had a few $100 in my account each month to subsidize things like my rent. So I still had to work part-time, but I didn't have to make the whole thing. And late 80s, early 90s rent, I was able to pretty much pay the rent with that chunk of money, especially when I had roommates. And so I just had to pay for food and other things, which meant that I was able to spend more time on my own, on my own reconnaissance, doing my own thing, like making art. I was also a bit of a workaholic already. Or maybe more accurately, I should say, not terribly social, which left me a lot of time to do work. But I'm not sure which came first in that case, whether which is the chicken and which is the egg, because I remember consciously making a decision not to spend time with people using the excuse that I wanted to draw. So who knows? In either case, I did that for a while. When did I drop out? It was a year before I turned 18. So he's got, yeah, things on his cuffs and frills. A lot of what you're seeing now, too, by the way, this kind of quick style of drawing that I'm doing. So this is penciling that I've developed as a technique, rough penciling, doing comics and then animation work. And, you know, it's grounded in a lot of life study. Think about digital work is I can make really quick on the fly revisions like that. But the fast, loose approach, it was like the core of a course I taught called Dynamic Drawing, which there's a site, a link in my description text somewhere. I think if nowhere else than off the link tree, you'll find Dynamic Drawing and Making Comics, my teaching sites. And there's also a cartooning course, a subset of the comic stuff. And those techniques come from some of it's rooted in early training I got when I went to an arts high school before I dropped out. Mr. Tavares in the life art class was really good at teaching gesture. And that resonated well with things I saw at home because my mother was really into gesture drawing. So I saw a lot of gesture work in her work and in animation. It's a core piece of the animation. And so I really got into learning how to do quick gesture and the figure in motion. That was an early focus. And then in comics, I went through a whole bunch of periods of studying intensely and aping the work of several artists of a really wide range of styles, like Barry Windsor Smith for a few months, and then Sienkiewicz for a few months, which, you know, them some different artists. Both amazing. And I learned a lot from each. But I wasn't into like one thing, which I think is healthy. You know, nothing against those who are just obsessively fixated by one particular technique per se, but I don't think it is actually the best if your goal is to broaden your palette of skills. You gotta stretch yourself. But that's just me. You do you. You do you. You do you. Do you. Boom. Hippie dude. I'm listening to also, very appropriate, it's Medieval Woman. Is it Medieval Woman? Am I misremembering the title of that song? Just Evil Woman. I like Medieval Woman, though. Someone's got to do that satire. That's how my brain works, though. Medieval Woman. That's funny. Boom. No, too much. What's going on? I got too many gaps? Let's drop close gaps. No, increase close gaps. That's how that works. Yeah, there we go. Good enough. Boom. Pop them out. Let's do that for the... Did I? I did. Okay. Never mind then. Boom, boom. Oh. Oh shit. Someone just gave me $100 in the chat. Well, thank you very much. That's quite kind of you. I really need to put in like a sound alarm, like what's the thing I'm thinking of? What's that word? An alert sound? There we go. An alert sound for chats in general, but especially for like super chats. That's what they're called. That's right. Put user in. Timeout? No. I'm just checking out the options I have in these. They're all the same, right? Yeah. Oh, nice. Should I? Oh, they don't let me pin that. Oh. Feels like there should be like a reward I can give for giving me a big thing, other than just saying thanks a lot for. Oh, I feel like there's probably a way of pronouncing this that I'm not gonna know. Kakashi PD? No, is that initials or is that a short two-letter word? I don't know how to pronounce that. Hopefully it's Kakashi PD. Thanks a bunch. All right. Focus down to drawing. I want to draw the rest of some of the mourners. Why does anything can be finished and available? Well, I already have 2 chunks of it out in my book Revolver Zero. So you'll find a link to that in Gumroad, both print and digital editions. There's other ways of getting it too. Cool. Excellent. I pronounced the name right. It's in the... You also can get it through Amazon, and that's essentially what I'll do. But I get a bigger, sooner cut of it if you order it through my Gumroad, and then I send you the copy through Amazon. I use CreateSpace, which is now Kindle Direct, to self-publish my self-published stuff. So Dream Life and Revolver 1 and 0. Those are up there, and you can get them digital as well from Gumroad. You also get them if you join the Patreon. I'm not charging monthly, but you'll pay the one time, and you'll have access then to a big library of self-published stuff. That's not print. When I was keeping up on, whoops, I'm doing grass. Grass does not belong on this layer. Put it back with the grass. Boom. I'm doing mourners. This is getting into the gutter area. This blue line you're seeing is the safe area of the drawing. I think he's this tall, yep. And his head's there, but he's leaning over, so right about there is where this guy's head is. What was I saying? I got distracted. Its priority's drawing. Someone asked what tablet I'm using. I'm working on a 22 XP pen. And I own a 15.6 Pro, I think it's what it's called. One with a laminated screen, which I like. But for the current job, I needed more room, and the studio provided me with this 22 to work on. I'll probably get something like it, because I've gotten kind of addicted to the large working space. So there's a good chance I will buy one of my own when and if I have to give this one back. I was going to do... I'm also really interested in... I've got to work on a lot of Cintiqs. They're very expensive, but they're very good. My mother works out of Cintiq as well. She's an animation director and storyboard artist. And I really like the look and feel of those little Studio Pros, I think they're called. The all-in-one units. I would like to get one of those, and I was talking to them about doing a thing, workshop, and maybe getting paid in hardware. Could happen still, but I've been neglecting putting together a outline for a thing to do it. Been busy. Things I like about the larger working areas I can get back to. There we go. One of the things I was talking about at some point down the longest line was gesture. And one thing about gestural drawings, it's suited to a larger work area. It's tricky. It's not impossible, but it's tricky to get a really good gestural line out of a smaller workspace. The 15.6 is right around the limit, I think. You can do some there. It's definitely big enough to do some. You can't really go crazy wild loose with it. You get closer to being able to really kind of scrawl freely, like doing something like this to think about the pose that I'm doing here. And the way you might use that is by starting out with something like it and using it as an underdrawing, which I'm kind of going to do here, sort of halfway through, but also because I want to think about the posing of the rest of what I'm doing. Let's anchor this in his shoulder and scale. Yeah, that'll work. So I can sort of see. This is like, I think of this as an alternate, the way I taught it in dynamic drawing. It's an alternate to thinking about the human form through anatomy. So you can't ignore anatomy. You're never going to be able to do really convincing, loose, free gesture that is anatomically persuasive, even if it's more cartoony. You know, like, it still feels like the shapes of the body. And the only way I'm able to do that is by having a really good foundation with anatomy and stuff. But I don't want to render anatomy in a slow, static process like constructive or analytical or classical anatomical reconstructions. The chunkier Marvel method is just a form of constructive anatomy, but broken down for the sake of simplicity. And he's got sleeves. So this guy's got a long sleeve biker type t-shirt thing going on. Did I draw? Does he have a belt? I drew fatter pants though. There we go. Gotta watch my continuity. He's got, and that's actually more accurate. This is the 70s. Well, no, I should say late 80s, but still much fatter pant legs. Bigger feet. There we go. Okay. Keep it at that for now. You know what? Let's use the gesture some more to block in. Whoops, what's going on? Wrong layer. Hey there. There we go. I don't really follow anime as a genre enough to be able to say I have a favorite anime as a specific, like out of the cohort. Compared to other anime, I think Howl's Moving Castle is especially. No, I don't know. I do like some anime quite a bit. Howl's Moving Castle being, and Kiki's Delivery Service is one of the first that I got really excited about watching. My mother got a copy and brought home from her work at the studio when I was a kid, and I totally fell in love with that. A lot of Studio Ghibli. Also, I saw, what's the one about the fireflies? It's horrific. It's about the nuclear bombing. Is it bombing or is it just fire bombing? I can't remember which now. Anyway, it's quite disturbing. Saw that quite young. I like it, but it made a dark impression in my youth. That looks weird. That's a weird pose. We don't like that. Go away. Let's try again. Grave of the Fireflies. Yeah, that's the one. That's some good stuff. Not for kids, though. Well, it depends. Like, your philosophy of child rearing is the deciding factor, I suppose. What happened to my pencil? It got so small. There we go. I need to shift my reality to their level. There we go. Okay, that head's too low. Or you know what? I think that's telling me. Gotta go with this. That's a woman standing behind him. And let's give myself a little hint for the size of the crowd. Yeah. We'll do Dude in the Hat next. Story behind him in the last page, if you catch earlier in the video. he came and took over the ceremony at one point from the rabbis, which was kind of funny. I'm not even sure he was Jewish. Or maybe he was, but he weren't no rabbi. Kind of looks like he's leaning in a little tight there. Let's give him a little room to breathe. There we go. I'm gonna get that arm. I'm trying to feel the arm. And feel by what I mean like that. When I'm doing gesture, one of the things I lean on a lot is my own self proprioception. So I'm kind of imagining what it feels like to stand this way in that body. Which works a lot of times, but it doesn't always work. Sometimes you end up going, no, that's not quite right. I need to get in a little closer and stop and think about, yes, that. There it is. We'll come in and clean this up after. There we go. So I'll end up knocking those back later to clean them up with the next pass. No. You know what? Stick with that face for now. What's going on over there? I'm going to draw that. Around here ends up being cut off. So this is really close to the edge of the page. I don't want to get too involved in that corner. And I want this to get very loose and suggestive along the way. Like around here. This is about as much information as I want to give. And by here I just want to do patchy shadows of figures. So if anyone's joining me later, oh, it's this. It's always nice to and informative to watch your streams. Oh, thank you. See you around. That's cool. I'll see you around too. Boom. Something I started talking about earlier and totally jumped the rails on. Pepe, as you can see, not very clearly represented. I do not have clear memories of Pepe, and I did not even own any photographs until earlier this week of him. He was a huge part of my early childhood in many ways. Part of the community household that I grew up in anyway. He was a little distant at times and kind of macho and not very accessible as a person to me. But he was around. He was definitely a kind of role model and an influence. Very crafty, interesting craftsman, carved boats and worked in leather with my mother and her friend Susie, his husband, or his wife, I should say. He's her husband. I learned skills from him in terms of watching him work on things and work on the house, renovating, a lot of trade stuff. And I learned some positive stuff from him too. But I don't ever feel like really, I don't think I ever felt super close to him. He was strangely distant for someone who lived in the same house. And then lost touch with him and Susie when my mother moved out on her own for a while. Or after a while, I mean. After she moved out. And we lived in a different house for a while, and then I left home. And I kind of lost touch with Susie and Jody and Pepe quite a bit. And then the only memory I have of the events that are being depicted in this scene are those shared by people to me. Like my grandmother had a version of this story that I always found a little humiliating, that she would share at family gatherings. Thanks, Grandma. But other people told versions of it, so it kind of confirmed something happened like this. But I have no first-hand account, and I think I've been told by some people they don't remember it happening at all. Which is easy. I mean, they didn't have to necessarily be there in the moment that it happened. So. And, you know, memory is funny that way. Unreliable narrator and all. So I'm also doing that. I'm going to use that for the crowd here. Both the kind of like lack of detail in there, and some even foreground figures almost like they're blacked out. And I think I'll do just more of these shady shape things going on over here. Right now I'm using red because this was going to be rough, but I may even keep this sketchy look for these things. I do different styles for different stories. And this one, different styles for different moments and pages. So I'm going to go in with a dark layer at some point and clarify some things. I'll leave that there for now. Got a lot of layers going on here. Okay. I think I want to adjust positioning. Now that I've got more of it in. Hang on, cancel. Let's reorient myself and back up a bit. Okay, I need to there we go. How is that still? Oh, it's not. Okay, confused. Ha! So, what is this? Yoops. Yipes. There we go. Whoops. There we go. A little less dizzy making. Wasn't really the focus there. Oh, dirt. I need him. He's shoveling some dirt. Digger. actually, let's get a cleaner leading edge. And also break up. Oops. Forgot that's not a separate layer. I don't want to cut through him. Let's use, there we go. It's a bit more frugal. There we go. Okay, good place to leave that for now. What are we doing for duration here? Oh, we're over an hour. Hey, you know what? It's time to wrap this up probably. And I'm gonna stretch my legs. Maybe do some more. It's getting late though. Thanks for visiting. Kakashi, thanks again for the big tip there. Super chat. I will have to figure out how to transfer that to the proper accounts. Be good. Draw much. You want to get good? Draw lots. And I'll probably do another stream this weekend. Work more on this page and maybe another one. There we go, rounding out this composition a little. Save that work. Save often, save frequently. Draw all the time. Wash your hands. Be safe. Delta variant is coming for you. Get your shots. Don't be like that. Get your shots. And I'll see you next time.